Good morning, everyone. Welcome back. Happy Monday, or whichever day you're watching and consuming this. It is the Monday before a holiday weekend. So, fingers crossed you have some time off coming up here and can enjoy some time with family, with friends, however you celebrate spring holidays, or just, take a few days to yourself if that works out better for you too. And no wrong way to spend a day off if you have it is my assumption. So, but anyway, appreciate you all being here, being back. Ashley, I was thinking about this before we started the recording. I don't remember like the exact timeline. Like I know you got your new role pretty close to when I like asked you to be a full-time co-host with me here. So I think it was like one right after the other. Is my memory correct? That okay, I was
I
trying.
think you brought it to my attention in the winter, maybe November, December, and I got the offer in December.
Okay, so real close. Yeah, perfect. So we said from the start, we were going to do one of these episodes where we make it about Ashley's career progression, moving from the classroom into the role she has now, but wanted to give her some time to get comfortable in the role because the first week, 2 weeks, I'm sure that there's a lot of moving parts, a lot of training. So now that you have a little bit more time to get situated in the role, learn about some of the responsibilities, figured it would be a good time for us to kind of talk about your story and your journey here. And we've shared glimpses of this in the past. If you've listened to any episodes with Ashley and I where we didn't have a guest or a specific topic, we were just kind of talking about job searches and stuff like that. You probably got some of the tidbits of it, but this time we're going to kind of do a deep dive into the journey of Ashley. So that's the episode, and just wanted to start off just because you and I are sitting and chatting right here because of networking and the role that networking can play for someone in a job opportunity. So, and that can mean a few different things, right? Obviously, you already have an established network, and that's going to be probably your primary go-to when you're starting a career path, career decisions, things like that. You're going to trust your circle. So beyond that, it's tough to kind of start adding to the circle, right? Especially like as you get older in life, it's not easy. Like I look at how easy it is for my 6-year-old to make friends on the playground. I'm like, man, I wish I could do that with networking too. Just like, hey, you're playing with a blue crayon. I like blue, and then best friends immediately. So it would be nice if adults had that, but it's a little tougher for us.
Yeah.
So Ashley, what role did networking kind of play for you, and how did you kind of find those right resources, right? Because you can't just take everyone's advice and run with it. You'll be pulled in thousands of different directions. So how did you, make those decisions, who to add to your circle, and what were some of the ways you looked into building that network and how you could support each other?
I'll be honest, when I knew that I wanted out of education, I got on LinkedIn. And I'll be honest, when for me, my experience when I first got on LinkedIn, it was intimidating. It was a lot.
Yeah.
Um, and having that withal idea to get out immediately and meeting a platform that everyone says this is the way to go, but it's being intimidating, I immediately looked like for support.
Mhm.
So of course, I met someone that was like, we can optimize your LinkedIn profile.
Mhm.
Of course, they had a fee, and so I went that route. Um, and once that started, it was like I was on my own. And so how I want to say met all my LinkedIn friends and families was I made one post
Mhm.
and I think it's still up there. And that's when I got you commented. That's like when my network came from wherever and just it's like the DC characters they just all formed together and supported me.
Yeah.
Um and I had to take that as a sign and reach out to you all in privately through messaging.
Mhm.
And the I would say you all received me very well. And it felt very comfortable and genuine. And I had to be intentional on my end to make sure to continue their relationship.
Right.
And where I'm at now is because of you all. The advice, the suggestions, the feedback, the honesty, then the just intentional um, trying to help me
Hmm.
um, get out there. Um, and the funny thing is, like, you hear people say, um, yeah, your networks will tell you to put me down as a reference. Honestly, the role I'm in now, that was not the case.
Okay.
Um, it wasn't a reference. I was a external person coming in for an interview, and I just was blessed with the opportunity.
Right.
But it was the words and advice and just the support what gave me the courage to jump out there and give 100%. But it was that 100% was up to me at the end of the day. I
Right.
just had to take that support and do the best I can with that.
Hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And when you start to build your network, I think a lot of times you fall into that path where, you're going to connect with people that are in a similar experience than you are. So a lot of people trying to transition out of education, connect with each other, network with each other, kind of
Yeah.
share those ideas, build things. And I think that's helpful because one of the most overwhelming aspects of moving from the classroom to something new is, that concept of starting over. And what do I want to take with me from education if I'm going to pursue something new? And for me, that into recruiting, it made sense, talent evaluation, communication skills, time management skills, stuff that I either enjoyed or was kind of well equipped to handle at that point. I wanted to take into that next career path. But it took me a while to figure out what that was. And
Mhm.
admittedly, I think I've talked about this. My mindset when I first started searching was applying to everything and hoping for the best. And that left me with months of unanswered emails and applications until I really kind of refined. So, now that you've kind of grown into your current role, you're learning more about the expectations that are on you. We talked in the past of skills that you wanted to transfer over, but now that you're in the role, learning it, what would you say are some of the skills that you didn't know you would be bringing with you from education that you find yourself using a lot now in your current role?
Communication. Communication is key.
Yeah,
And then corporate is really key.
yeah,
Um, and I don't want to jump because I want to talk about this later, but if I just answer the question, communication and organization, and creativity, those would be the top three skills that came from education that is really allowing me to thrive in my current role.
yeah. Yeah, definitely. And to partner with that, I mean, we've talked about this before too, right? When you're transitioning from the classroom into something new, I think a lot of transitioning educators get trapped into the L&D and
Mhm.
the ed tech space. And not to say that you can't find success there because we've had people on the show that can walk you down that path and show you. But with so many people interested, you hear the words education, you hear the words learning and design, those fit so well with what you do as an educator. It just is kind of a common sense thing. So, what were some of the roles that you would say you were targeting early on in your seat search? And, as you went through, what were some of the adjustments that you made to your focus to ultimately land you where you are now?
So, I will say I reached out and I would say had two transition coaches.
Mhm.
And so the top roles that they suggested was, of course, customer success,
Yep.
sales. Um, it was really up there with those two.
Yep.
And then ed tech, like if I wanted to be like a curriculum developer, right, or something like that, it was that.
Yeah.
Um, and my current role has nothing to do with that.
Right.
Um, I would say a nugget I took from that is people tell you to find your niche and you feel like you have to put that in your LinkedIn search bar and just focus on that, focus on that. I am here to say don't do that. Don't limit yourself. Most people will say to do that, but I would say don't do that. Instead, be optimistic. Look at those different LinkedIn posts that people are saying they're hiring for. Click on that, read through it. If transfer your skills mentally in that moment, if it's something you think you can do, I would say go for it. That's what I did.
Okay.
Um, the industry I'm in has nothing to do with education, it's petrochemical.
Yeah.
So I would say don't limit yourself
Yeah.
because most people probably would tell you to find that one or two
Yeah.
and put it into LinkedIn and they'll send you those. Don't do that.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's kind of a conversation I've had in the past with some of the career coaches that I work with and speak with. It's just those limitations that, initially that focus is important, right? You don't want to do what I did and spray and pray, because that leads to nothing either. So what I've always kind of encouraged, and it goes with what you were talking about, is don't just limit yourself with the positions, but do the research into companies that you want to work for as well.
Mhm.
And that's really like if you see an industry that's thriving right now, look for ways that you can get involved with it. It might you might be surprised in how well your skills align with the kind of the needs in AI, in the tech space just in general, and in manufacturing too. I mean, that's where I operate now. So a lot of opportunities that you can kind of get through if you kind of break through that initial hesitation there. But with that comes, you got to get your resume in front of people, and that's the struggle, right?
Mhm.
Not just
Mhm.
not just finding the right people, but having a resume that kind of really highlights your skills. Because my resume coming out of the classroom was obviously very teacher focused since that was
Mhm.
my mindset. And, it took me some trial and error to figure out what my resume needed to say, what I needed to highlight. And you've done this more recently than I have. So I'm just going to pose those questions to you. What were some of the initial changes you made to your resume? And, how overall did that help you when it came to progressing in discussions and interviews?
So let me go back and then I'm gonna touch on it. I paid for three different resume writers. None of those resumes got me the role I have now. It took one of my LinkedIn friends to show me how to optimize my resume,
Mm-hmm.
and I became a expert at doing that to the point I started helping other people.
Yeah.
Once I landed my role, they were like, "Oh, can you help me with my resume?" And I was like, "Hey, this is what you need to do. This is what I noticed when I started getting those interviews."
Mm-hmm.
Um, so, um, yeah, I learned how to optimize. Someone was just gracious enough to give me the key to success on how to
Right.
optimize your resume,
Yeah.
and I took that to the fullest potential, and I just was playing with it, playing with my resume. I will say the biggest takeaway was add numbers,
Mm-hmm.
add, be quantitative on your resume.
Right.
It is a game changer.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason I say that, as educators, we don't really have to do that on our resume. They
Right.
just want to know, do we have the skill set?
Yeah.
Can you do this? Do you know what differentiation is? Da, da,
Right.
da, da. So transitioning from education to corporate, ed tech, whatever the case may be,
Mm-hmm.
I would say add numbers and flip how you think. And it takes time because I was a stay-at-home before I landed my role. I just left education. I knew I did not want to go back.
Yeah.
I was blessed to have that option to not, and I know everybody doesn't have that option.
Right.
Um, I didn't sign my contract, so I stayed at home until January. So I was essentially a stay-at-home mom for about 7 to 8 months. And I had that time to work on and craft how to elevate my resume based on a job description or role description. And when I started getting those interviews, emails like every week because I was applying weekly,
Yeah.
it was the numbers.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's crazy how that works out. And, it's just ultimately is a numbers game, right?
Yep.
That's what you have to look for throughout that. And so now that you've been in the role for a few months, we've talked about some of the skills that you didn't know you would need that you're using now. But a lot of questions I think people have when you step into a new role after those 60, 90 days is what's been the most challenging for you? What has been the most rewarding for you? Just kind of new skills that you're getting developed to develop new industries that you get to learn about. What would you say you've noticed being in corporate, it's different than being in the classroom, to kind of share that insight with people looking to make the move?
So this week is my week 12. I'm on a hybrid schedule, so this is my Friday off. But this is my first 60 days.
Mhm.
I've completed and I'm so excited. I've been getting nothing but great feedback from my supervisor, so I feel that I'm doing an amazing job. However, I would say one of the difference, I wouldn't say a challenge, but something that's different that maybe stand out is the relationship building and the communication. In corporate and in my position, there's a lot of meetings, but the meetings are different from education.
Right.
Education, I feel like I've been out so long, the terminology, but it's more like team meetings, curriculum meetings, and they're in person, right?
Right.
Corporate is teams.
Yeah.
It's a Teams meeting. Hey, let me get on the calendar. Let me find the scheduler. Let me see what works for everybody. Oh, jump on really quick. It's rarely in person, but it's a lot. I can have 4 or 5 team meetings in a day.
Right.
Um, so that is something that's different just because of the climate of it.
Mhm.
Um, and I would say relationship building. And when I say that in education, you focus on your team or
Right.
your department, right? In corporate, like in my position, I get to build relationships with all departments,
Mhm.
finance, HR, even building relationships with EAs, exec assistants. It's I would say it's intense, but I feel like I'm doing a great job because when I interact with them, I feel it's a vibe and
Yeah.
it's going well. And I'm learning, how to approach and meet those expectations.
Yeah.
But other than that, I would say that that is a difference. I wouldn't say necessarily a challenge. It's a difference
Yeah.
because the climate and the way it's done is totally different from what it looks like in education.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. It's ultimately new, so and it's
Hmm.
adjusting for sure. So, last two questions I wanted to combine a bit, just because we've talked about how you were maintaining positivity through your search, and that was one of the things I think a lot of people really identified and why your network grew to what it was. Because you do see a lot of people that the frustration gets the best of them, and
Hmm.
about the search, the frustrations, the challenges, and it's easy to relate to it. But at the end of the day, what can you say aside from I'm sorry you're going through that? Whereas having that more positive spin on it kind of helps you. Okay, well, you're identifying this as what's motivating you, so that other people can kind of see that too. So throughout the search, what were some of the ways that you tried to gain motivation from the success that you were seeing around you? And now that you have achieved that success, what would be some things that you would say to those who are either still in the search or getting ready to start theirs?
So how, and how I would stay positive? Um, I would say it was my network. Just seeing that you all was able to transition, like why not me?
Yeah.
It just really comes down to timing. And I through the process, my favorite saying was, "It cannot storm forever."
Mhm.
Um, and I believe I went through all those interviews and I was not chosen for a reason. There was a reason. Maybe I'm not a remote person. Maybe my personality is for a more in-person and personal type of job role.
Yeah.
So I really honed in on belief and having faith because most of my network is teachers that transitioned into different fields.
Right.
And I just felt like if you all were able to do it, I can do it as well. I just have to put the work in.
Mhm.
And so I just continue to do that and check in with you all on if not weekly, it was a monthly basis.
Yeah.
I even had one of my LinkedIn friends. He didn't hear from me for a while, and he was like, "Is everything okay?"
Yeah.
And so I can appreciate that.
Mhm.
I can appreciate my five strong LinkedIn friends versus the people I'm trying to find in the company and reach out to and not getting any response.
Right.
You all were enough for me. So I would say, how did I stay positive? The faith, just seeing you all transitioning and thriving and going.
Yeah.
Um, the advice I will give someone is to, I would say, have faith as well. And I understand everyone bandwidth of faith is going to be different. So it's probably easier said than done. And I do understand that. However, I would say it probably would be very, very beneficial to find a strong LinkedIn connection and hone in and build with that. And hopefully, they have someone that is like you, intentional, reaching out, always willing to jump on a call or talk things through. I would say look for that.
Mhm.
If you're an introvert, I would say try your best to get out of that and really hone in and build in an intentional LinkedIn connection with
Mhm.
someone that can lead you, guide you, and support you.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. And I think this show has kind of always been, the underlying theme is just kind of that power of networking. I have you as now a regular co-host, you have regular contributors, and these are people that I just met through LinkedIn.
Mhm.
They willingly spend time chatting with me about, what's important to them, how they got to the success that they have, what insight they can share. And providing this insight for free. Time is such a valuable thing, especially now. So
Mhm.
speaks to how you can build those connections on LinkedIn. But Ashley, I'm glad we got to finally do this and have the episode that was about your search, your journey. Again, we've talked about bits and pieces of it here and there, but to actually get to sit down and kind of learn through the whole experience, I'm sure seeing where you are now versus where you were this time last year and kind
Yeah.
of those changes, it's probably very rewarding for you to see. So if you're watching and listening, keep up that hope. Your journey is going to have similar success soon.
Yes.
It's frustrating. It might take a while, but it's there if you want it. So appreciate everyone who watched, who listens. We'll be back in a couple weeks to discuss new topics. But if you have any questions more about Ashley's journey, you know where to find her. You know where to find me.
Mhm.
To connect and let's keep networking. But have a great week, a good holiday weekend, hopefully, and we'll talk soon.
Bye.